And you can see even where we are in West Africa, I think God is really doing a lot, and there's going to be a shift taking place where there has been a lot heavy on the missionaries and Westerners coming in to share the gospel and do that work. But I think it's going to be shifting to God's going to be sending out locals back, because there's kind of not a diaspora going on, but a lot of movement, people movement.
And so in Christianity, we look at this person as made in the image of God, that they have dignity, they have honor, that they deserve respect, and that we think there is something better for you in your life, not just physically to get off the street and break that generational cycle of physical poverty, but there is a God who loves you, who sees you, who wants to redeem you and give you so much more in your life than what you're currently experiencing.
Welcome to Let's Talk About That, the podcast where we deep dive into Sunday's message and explore your questions. I'm your host, Astin Kahnk, and I'm excited to share this journey with you. Whether you're a longtime member of the Orchard or a first-time visitor, Let's Talk About That is your space to explore, reflect, and connect. Join us as we navigate the intricacies of faith, spirituality, and daily life, seeking to understand how the wisdom shared on Sundays can be applied to our modern challenges. So, grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable space, and let's dive in together. This is Let's Talk About That, where the conversation about Sunday's message never stops. Well, welcome back to Let's Talk About That. We hope that you guys are having a great start to your week. Well, we are sitting down with two of our Orchard friends today, just catching up. Carter, Danielle, how's it going?
We're doing great. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys were in, and Chip.
Yeah, just whatever's fine. It's fine. I'm here. I'm here.
By default, you're usually here.
I know. So actually, I'm glad that you brought me in, because it's been a minute since we've done this.
It has.
Matter of fact, I think the last time that I asked this question, you might have been the one that we asked it to when you came on the podcast before you came on staff. So we have a question that we ask new guests on the podcast.
Well, hold on. Let's rewind. Since I've taken over, I've tossed the question out. But since Chip is here, he feels led to have this icebreaker question.
Feels led.
I like
likes chaos, all the things.
Get ready.
Back to high school student government. Lots of
that's right. That's right.
Icebreakers.
So Carter, we'll ask you first, but then Danielle, you need to answer too. We'll give you more time to think there.
Okay.
If you were a flavor, what flavor would you be?
And this could be like coffee flavor, like any type of flavor.
It's so funny.
Okay, so I would say I love barbecue sauces.
Oh.
But I would also say my favorite flavor of chips, and not Chip, the pastor of the Orchard, but the chips that
easily confused.
Yeah, that you can eat. My favorite flavor of chips are the Zapp's Voodoo chips, which I probably should not be saying.
What a pull!
Yes,
that's an elite pull right there.
I should not probably say the word voodoo on a Christian podcast.
It's okay.
But
it's a flavor.
It's just a flavor. It's basically a combination of barbecue mixed with salt and vinegar.
Oh,
and it's combined. And basically, if you go to a sub shop, a deli shop, a sandwich shop, it's in my opinion, the best chip combination to go with a sandwich, and that's just the name of their flavor of chips. But yeah, it's barbecue mixed with salt and vinegar. You don't think it would go together, but it is. Someone brought that over to us when we were overseas, and I was like, okay, I'm going to ration these out because I don't get them very often. I ate them in like a day.
Look,
I was just like sat on the couch.
I wish everybody around this table and listening to this podcast could know how happy I am with his answer, because that is the type of answer I expected from my man, Carter Jackson. What an elite pull. What an elite pull.
I was thinking to myself, I could say ranch or, some sort of like lamb barbecue sauce.
My favorite answer all time on the podcast is when we were doing a momcast, and it was
before my day.
Yeah, it was three ladies, Mary Beth, Casey Dix, and I think Casey Young were on there. And instead of asking them what flavor they were, because none of them could answer it, I said, what flavor would, one of the others be? And Casey Dix looks at Mary Beth and goes, she's definitely a strawberry. And Mary Beth goes, oh, thank you. And I'm like, what? How is that a thank you?
How do you know?
What does that mean? Is that a
strawberry,
compliment?
like sweet, kind, like goes with the flow.
I've never thought of strawberry and kind in my life, but sure.
Well, even like strawberry shortcake, the little like character.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think that character's kind. Like that's what I think about.
A character?
Yeah, it's like a little like it's a baby.
Strawberry shortcake.
Yes.
It's like it's a food, but it's also like a little dog.
Oh, sorry.
It's all about the food for me. I don't know. Danielle, save us. If you were a flavor, what flavor would you be?
I'm really curious what Carter would say.
No, don't bring me. I already have my elite pull of a sauce. I don't know now.
No,
I mean,
fine.
she loves her coffee. So,
No. I mean, I'm just going to say the first thing that popped in my head when you asked the question was a lemon.
A lemon.
A lemon.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. All right. So here's the thing. If Carter had said lemon, that might have been a kind of moment. But because you say lemon, you've got a reason in your head about it. So unpack lemon for me.
Well, again, it was the first thing that popped in my head. So I was like, why did I think that? So then I was trying to come up with the reason after, actually. I think I can be a bit intense, which when you taste a lemon, it's like, whoa, you're intense. You know, like I kind of come off like really intense to people. Yes, truth. And it can be kind of sour, but at the same time, I think lemons can, anywhere they go or any food that they touch, whether it's savory or sweet, it just enhances the flavor.
Girl, enhances the flavor was exactly
That
what
is
I was
such
thinking.
a good answer.
That is so
That
good.
is a phenomenal
That's
answer.
a sermon illustration.
Yeah,
right there.
there you go. Write that down.
That will preach, as they
Yes.
say. That was really good. See,
About all the foods that you have, when you have like a side of lemon, you can squeeze on it, fish and meat, and do you want sweet tea? You want lemon with it, or water, and
That's a really good answer. Yeah.
Man,
We
we're
came-
going
we
to
came ready
exegete lemon today. Let's do this. I love that. That's phenomenal.
Well, Carter, so we did the Impact Tomorrow magazine with you guys and your family, but since that magazine, I'm sure there's a lot that's kind of happened. So I would love to kind of hear, where your family's at. What are you guys doing? Yeah. How is God working in you guys? Just a good update from you guys.
Yeah, and I would say just a quick recap for those that are listening that maybe aren't familiar with who we are and what we're doing. So I'm actually from Lake City, born and raised here. And my dad served on staff at the Orchard for a long time and helped kind of start the youth ministry. So I grew up as a student, all the way from student ministry, was back at the Holiday Inn, all the way back from the original.
The OG days.
The OG days.
BYOB.
Yeah,
Bring your own baby.
Yeah, basically, truly. I think we were there maybe in the first few weeks of the Orchard getting started. And yeah, so it was really raised in my faith through the Orchard all the way through college. And then so blessed and grateful to be a part of this community. Even driving back into Lake City today, I just was like, honey, I'm home.
I love it.
And I'm like, there's just something about coming home
Yeah.
to where you're from, your hometown. Even though I've lived now all over the world, there's just a special connection and special feeling that you get when you come back. And so I just want to say that, yeah, I'm a product of the Orchard Community Church.
Love it.
And love the community, the church, the people that are here. Even if I don't get to be here with you guys, with my physical presence, it's always a blessing to be back in town. And so
Yeah.
raised in here, and then we lived in Honduras for 3 years, serving there with the ministry. Our son was born there, Emmett. And then we are currently living in West Africa. So we live, basically, if you got on a boat out of Jacksonville and just went straight across the Atlantic Ocean, those countries that exist right there on the Atlantic Ocean in North Africa, that's kind of where we're located. Okay. Danielle, my wife, we met right before we moved to Honduras, and our entire marriage really has existed on the mission field as missionaries.
Cool.
And
how long did you guys, how long were you married before you headed to Honduras?
A month.
I was going to say, I remember it being quick.
Wow.
Well, again, most people that want to go on the mission field as a married couple or even as a family, what's hard about doing that is you have to, I'm air quoting, by the way, on the podcast, you can't see that, but you have to kind of break down your life in a way of, we have to get rid of the sports, the after school activities. Our whole marriage has been founded on this house and this mortgage and our community that we've built. And then we have to think about going overseas. Whereas if you were, young, mid-20s, and you just get married, that you don't have a house, you don't really have cars with car payments, you don't have a bunch of jobs that you have to think, I've built this career for the past 10, 15, 20 years. You're just ready to go. And so that's why I think it is a good but also challenging age, because you have the freedom and the flexibility to go overseas as a missionary, but you also, some of the things you do is you lack the life experience, the, hey, we haven't
resources, connections, things like that.
Yeah. So you're a little younger on the young side. So there were a lot of challenges to getting married and moving overseas. There was, again, all all we owned was in our suitcases. We didn't own cars. We didn't own houses. We just, had our Bibles and suitcases and said, hey, we want to go serve in Honduras. And was an amazing, beautiful thing. But at the same time, it was like, oh, and now we're on top of learning about married life and all that comes with marriage and the challenges that you face in early marriage. Now you're also learning a foreign language, living in a foreign country, being a stranger in a foreign land, everyone constantly looking at you, whether it's the color of your skin or the accent that you have, or constantly being confused. And so the good thing about Danielle and I is that we both have a love for adventure and traveling and living overseas. I would even say, going back to being from Lake City, I just always felt like I didn't belong here. And that not in like a way that I felt like I was too good for where I was from. I just constantly felt like I'm just supposed to be somewhere else. And so I always mess with Trey Lee, shout out, about him and I were best friends all through high school and even into college, and still one of my best friends today. And I always used to say, Trey, like, what are you doing, man? We got to go out. We got to explore the world. We got to go somewhere big. Like, we got to. And he's always like, no, I'm really content right here in Lake City. I'm going to live and die and be married right here in Lake City. And I would always just get so frustrated. And a lot of that was my immaturity at the time of not realizing that God calls people to different places and makes people content where they are, and puts, I think, kind of this urge in other people to go and do different things. And that's okay. And we should celebrate all of those people. And so, but now, in my 30s and off to West Africa, we've been over there for a year and a half. And we moved over there, I would say, a lot of mission organizations and missionaries, they go to a specific country or region with a plan in mind. Hey, we're going to build 50 schools over the next 20 years. We're going to start, 20 wells in places with bad drinking water. We're going to build a bunch of medical clinics in these places because they need this. And when they get there, they basically bulldoze over a lot of people for the sake of what they want to go do. And again, I don't think it's inherently wrong if you have a dream and a vision for a place. But I think what we wanted to do specifically as the Jackson family was, hey, there were doors that opened for us to get into this country. We know this is where God is leading us, but we don't really know exactly what we're going to do there. And that's also really hard when you go speak at churches and support raising. We're like, so what are you doing? We're like, we don't really know yet. We're just going to go.
We're waiting on God. Truly,
So we had that conversation, before you went over there. You were like, we know this is where we need to go. We know this is where we want to be. Not sure exactly what it's going to look like 2-3 years from now once we get roots down and get a clear sense of God's calling. But I mean, I think, when you're in ministry, especially missionary, you're supposed to have, this strategic game plan, bullet points. Here's what we're going to accomplish in the next, but I mean, the truth is the Christian life is about obedience one step at a time. Right. And
just being open handed of like, your will, not mine.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know what the next step is until you take the one that's in front of you.
Absolutely. And so when we went over there originally, it was humbling to go to people and say, we don't really know what we're doing yet. But I would say that sometimes also honesty is the best policy in that regard. Like, hey, we're being honest with you that we're not trying to come up with some sort of thing to kind of deceive people that we 100% have this idea put together. We just wanted to say, hey, we're going to go over there and learn language. We're going to acclimate to the culture and then meet people, locals that are there, and say, hey, what do you need? What resources do we have stateside, or what experiences do Danielle and I have, whether it's our university degrees, experiences, things that God has equipped us as Westerners with in terms of organization, planning, some things that maybe are needed to help start and sustain an organization or a ministry. And we'll just ask local people and kind of see what are the needs here. And so we went over there and started to...
I'm going to interject real quick too, because I think it was a little bit different for us to share in that way, that we didn't know what we were doing because we are a part of a smaller organization. Like we're very much independent as missionaries.
Okay.
But if you go to a place like West Africa, for example, most missions organizations, if you were to join that missions organization and move to West Africa, your first 2 years, you're only in language school.
Oh, really?
Like your full-time language school, you're not really doing much ministry. And so essentially what we were telling people was that same thing. It just wasn't under, we're with this big organization like Pioneers or SIM, or if we were a part of any of those organizations, it would have been the same exact thing. What we had being more independent was, we know that this is the first thing that we need to do, learn culture, because there's so much acclimation. It's such a culture shock. We, I think, went through it a little bit easier because we had the prior experience of living in another country like Honduras. But for people who are brand new on the field, like it's a pretty big it's a big shock.
Yeah.
And if you got young kids and you're trying to adjust your whole life, right? And this time, Honduras, we had no kids. This time we had 2 young kids. We moved over there with a 5-month-old, and Emmett turned 3 a few days after we landed.
So how have they been with like the language?
Yeah.
Are they also learning the language as well? Or is it kind of just what you guys are teaching them?
Yeah, so we do want our kids to learn the language. Where we are, there is an American school for missionary kids and anyone else who wants to send their kids there, but it's a Christian American school, so it's all in English. But something that can happen with that is you can get kind of pulled into this bubble. And your kids go to that school and then come home to an English speaking home, and they don't interact much with the locals or the community outside of the walls of their school. And so when we went there, our kids being so young, not in full-time school, and it was, had the ability to go to a preschool, we did put him into a preschool, a local preschool. Just so you know, like we have to be very vague about some things.
Yeah,
if I catch my words, sometimes that's what I'm doing.
No, you're good.
This is being online. And so he went to a local preschool in the mornings, and then where he was immersed in more of the culture and language. And then in the afternoon, he would go to missionary school, the American school. So he kind of had the best of both worlds. And we were able to still be a part of that community with some of the other missionaries and expats, but also know that our kids, Emmett was getting a little bit of that local flavor, I guess, and experience. And then Shiloh, we have a nanny at home.
Okay.
And so she's immersed in 3 languages pretty much at all times of the day.
Yeah,
So
he'll count.
That's wild. I don't speak English well. That just blows my mind.
I speak country boy.
That's right. I'm from Trailer County, baby.
No, I laugh because Emmett, he loves to show that he can count to 50 in French, and he has the colors.
That's
and
cool.
The days of the week.
So it's French the language?
French is the trade
most
language.
of West Africa was colonized by the French.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
So,
cool.
and again, every country has tons of tribal languages in Africa. That's just the reality of where we live. But one of the differences where we live in our country is that there's a tribal language that's actually every tribe speaks that language.
Okay.
Because that's the dominant largest tribe in that country. But French is still spoken by, I would say, more people with more access to education. More men are going to be able to speak French where we're located. And it's sometimes kind of like a mix between, people say Spanglish, Spanish, and English, sometimes like El Taco, stuff like that. Well, where we are, it's kind of a mix between French and the tribal language. So you'll hear kind of both, and you're sitting there thinking, okay, I'm learning educated, formal French, and then I try to speak that, and they think I'm speaking, like some like Shakespearean version of French to them. But I'm like, I thought this is what I'm supposed to speak.
The best part is when they're talking to you and they're explaining something to you, and you just kind of look at them or you ask them to clarify. And the question you always get is, do you speak French? And you're like, yes, I speak French, but you are not speaking French.
Yes. I know what I'm saying. Like, bonjour.
I got this.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you have Mrs.
Do
Wise?
you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Truly.
Now, did you take French in high school, or did you take Spanish?
No, I took 4 years of Spanish.
Okay,
and
see,
then
I took French, so I would know a little bit.
Miss Wise.
Miss Madame
Shout
Wise.
out.
Shout out Miss Wise.
Yeah, well, again, it was really funny. I laugh. Anybody listening to this, so I took 4 years of Spanish in high school. At Columbia High School, and shout out Go Tigers, and sorry to any Brantford, Swanee, or Fort White people. We're just better. So I might make some people angry.
I'll allow it.
I'll allow it. I'm sorry.
We're here for all the shade
exactly.
thrown at my high school at each other. It's great.
It's great. No, it's a good rivalry. Lots of friends. But no, I took 4 years of Spanish. But by the time you get to Spanish 4 at CHS, for example, there's only like 3 or 4 students left that made it all the way. And it was me and 3 students that are Latino. And so I was like, this is not fair. One was from Mexico, one was from Puerto Rico, another one was from Peru, I think. And then there was me, just some Lake City kid. And I'm, struggling to speak, and they're over there just having full conversations in Spanish. And I was just sitting there like, why did I do this to myself? But it really helped when we moved to Honduras that we picked it up so much faster. Whereas now going and starting language number 3 in West Africa and learning French, it's great because the Latin Romance languages, Portuguese, Spanish, French, Italian, Romanian. It's easier to pick it up. But the problem is I don't have any real base for French. And so I would say if there is a frustration, Spanish was like, I love this language. It's so colorful and romantic and exciting and so expressive. And I have this great base. French, you definitely have the bonjour, comment ça va? Il y a la possibilité qu'on va pas. And you're just sitting there like, oh, it's
more than I knew. And I took French 3.
Yeah,
I was like,
I think he asked where the restroom was.
Yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
sure.
Yeah, can I have a Chick-fil-A #1 pickles?
The restroom is easy. It's toilet. Restroom is easy, so you can do that one.
Yeah, so there have been some, I would say, frustrations with French where I'm just sitting there going like, oh, I hate this language.
Yeah.
But then when you have a decent conversation with somebody where you ask them where they're from, how many kids they have, what are you doing here, and blah, blah, blah. And you get done with that conversation, you walk out and you give yourself like a little mini fist bump to yourself. And you're like, I did it. I spoke I had 3 sentences in French.
I know that language is such a big deal, right? Because you're coming down there again. You don't want to be short-term missionaries who go in and just kind of, hey, we're going to do our project and see ya. You want to build long-term relationships. But one of the things that, when I talk to missionaries and, especially when I was in college doing like some translation work, is they always talk about the heart language of the people. Like everybody has a heart language. Like when you're talking to yourself, what are you thinking in? When you're praying to God, in your heart, what are you praying in? And I know that that it's hard to communicate with somebody else's heart language when it's not yours, right? Especially when you get into a lot of those, truths of the gospel and, what it means to follow Jesus. And how do you explain what you just encountered with the Lord and somebody else's encounter with the Lord? And you're trying to use, like you say, I know it's not, but like Shakespearean French, like how do you communicate the passion and depth behind that? So how do you kind of overcome that? Like communicating emotionally, not just, hey, this is my textbook class.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. I would say I'll let Danielle talk a little bit about kind of what we're doing with some of the women that we're serving. But I would say briefly, every time I hear, for example, if I hear a sermon in French and I'm sitting there, I'm listening and I can understand what they're saying. And I understand, okay, I can understand, is this a gospel message? Is this not? Is this doctrinally right? Do I understand? Okay, I understand it, but I'm not sitting there. It's hard for me to hear a sermon in French and feel the conviction of the Holy Spirit. I'm just sitting there trying to hold on. I'm just like trying to hold on. Like, okay, can I just sit there for 45 minutes and understand what he said? Not did I actually encounter and feel what this was supposed to make me feel. And so I would say, there is a truth to that, to where like when I hear in English, my mother tongue, that is when I truly feel, not just understand the gospel, but feel the impact of it in my heart and soul, and walk away changed, hopefully, from conversations or sermons or what I'm reading. And so that's a challenge to where we're located, is because the trade language is French, but that's not the heart language of the country that we're serving. And the heart language is a different language. But the women that we've, in this, I can kind of transition to Danielle, but okay, what are we doing now is we have found kind of a niche of what we feel like the Lord is leading us to do. So Danielle, you want to maybe talk about that?
I think that's one thing for missionaries. Language is very emphasized, kind of backing up a little bit. And I think that's one reason why West Africa still remains so unreached. And one reason the gospel hasn't taken hold is that French is the Western language spoken there, but it is no one's heart language.
Okay. Or what they learn at school is French.
It's what they learn in school, but in the homes they're not really speaking French, unless it's a more educated family and they're preparing their children to be able to go to Europe or something like that. They want, that more,
which is very
French education,
very rare.
Yeah. But I will say also, just kind of backing up on something that Carter said, I think he says a lot of true things about listening to like a sermon, for example, in another language. But there is something really powerful, I think, and the Holy Spirit can move in a really special way if you're in these situations and you do hear these people worshiping in their heart language, even if you do not understand. It's kind of like the groaning's too deep for words that he talks about in Romans 8, where even though you can't understand the words being spoken with your mind, like you can feel it in your spirit, and you can feel the worship in the Holy Spirit. It's there. But being in a local church when they're singing in their local language and their heart language, it was really, really special. And so, I think language is such an incredible thing. And you can see even where we are in West Africa, we can talk about it if you want, if you guys are curious at all. But I think God is really doing a lot, and there's going to be a shift taking place where there has been a lot heavy on the missionaries and Westerners coming in to share the gospel and do that work. But I think it's going to be shifting to God's going to be sending out locals back.
Yeah.
Because there's kind of not a diaspora going on, but a lot of people movement coming to our city, and from other countries around, from West African countries, kind of becoming a hub. But you can see how there's been a foundation laid by missionaries over the years, because most of these tribal languages that are the heart languages, they were not written languages. And so these missionaries have gone into these other countries and lived among these tribes, learned that language, created an alphabet, a Roman alphabet for that language, or even an Arabic.
Okay.
Either like Roman script or Arabic
script,
okay.
Which was something I had never even heard of, the thought that you could create a written language in Arabic script or Roman script.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to hear the stories of translators who have to go in and decide, okay, how are we going to write this language before we can even begin to translate it? Like, it's crazy.
Based on what they're used to and comfortable with.
Yeah, and so these missionaries have gone into West Africa and they have done all this work. So not only created the written language or the alphabet for that language, but then translated the Bible. And so now these Bibles are being written down in these heart languages, and now we have all these people moving to these cities, to this main city, to escape whether it's, Islamic terrorism or poverty or political unrest, instability. But also, not only are these locals moving to our city, all these missionaries are also getting kicked out of these countries.
Yeah.
Because it's not even where these countries are religiously closed, but even politically now, because of some of the stuff that's gone on, Trump's policies. And not saying that the policies are bad. I agree with a lot of the policies, but these countries are responding to Trump
in ways tariffs or
like,
hey, you can't come into our country. So they're like, fine, well, then you can't come into ours.
Some of these things like affect us directly and our ability to move around. But if you're an American citizen, like, you can't even get into 3 of these countries in West Africa anymore with an American passport. It has nothing to do with religion. It's just they're unhappy with Trump. And so they're like, well, you know what? Like, Americans can't get visas anymore. And that's just what they do over there. You're like, I don't think this is a good way to create policy. But anyway, so all these missionaries, they're having to leave these countries that they've lived in for years, and have gotten to know, like,
wow.
Yeah.
Some of these missionaries
and they're coming to our city and they're like, what do we do? And so as Carter mentioned, we've kind of found this niche. A lot of people are moving to this city for work. And when we moved there, our house ends up being on this main road in this, upper middle class neighborhood near the missionary school. And
when we say upper middle class,
it's
do not think of what you think of here in America.
No. Yeah, I would say like for the locals,
dusty, dirty, trash, nasty.
And so we walk out of our door, and every day we'd see these women sitting on the street with their young children. You also see street kids all over the place, and which is a whole nother story. But there's all these women with babies, like they're pregnant women, they're babies, they have toddlers, kids all the way up to maybe ages about 10, sitting on the side of the road every day, like literally seeing the same women every single day. And where we live in West Africa, it's not nice weather. It's dusty, it's sandy. We're just south of the Sahara Desert.
I was going to say, is it a desert climate still over that part?
Oh, wow.
Yes. For sure.
So we have a wet season and a dry season.
All the dust storms that you'll get here come directly from where we are.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought so, but that's interesting.
Yeah, you have to dust a lot. Your house and everything.
Respiratory problems.
People have
sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so it's hot, and these women and these children are just sitting in the dirt or on this concrete every day in the same spot. And they beg. Because of the culture, for example, Islam, giving alms to the poor is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And these women are able to survive off of that, basically. These people, they feel obligated to give to them in a way and to do their good works, which is very different from Christianity.
Yeah.
And we would just walk by these women every day. And me being a mom,
I'm sure.
It just broke my heart every day. I just couldn't imagine that life for my kids. And I started asking some of my local Christian friends, like my language teacher, my nanny, who are these women? Like, where are they coming from? What are they doing here? This was within a few months of us being here. And I'd already been starting to learn about the life of women in West Africa and just how much they suffer. And they are just really crushed under, I think, cultural and religious the ways there. And so seeing these women, it was just like a whole nother level of, suffering for just a life of suffering and hopelessness and despair. But they would all tell me, like, these women, they choose this life. Like, this is what they want. They don't want to get off the streets. And that just didn't sit right with me. I also learned that these women most of them were not from the country that we were currently in, and that they had come from these other neighboring countries. But the reason that was shared with me is that they don't speak the language.
Gotcha.
They don't speak the local tribal language
or French. Neither one.
And they don't speak French as well.
So they
because they're not educated. Yeah. So not only do they not speak French, but they don't speak, which would be like a unifying language for all of West Africa amongst the tribes. Even within this country, they don't speak any of those tribal languages unless they had been there for a long period of time.
They're from the surrounding countries of the country we're in that are coming to our country to beg in our city.
Yeah.
And so essentially it was no one can talk to them. They can't do anything either.
That would be so hard.
And even, missionaries that are coming to this area, they're not learning those languages or when they're moving to the country that we're in. So long story short, we really just felt the Lord, love your neighbor.
Yeah.
Just gospel is very simple.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, how do we love our neighbor? And because that seemed at the time impossible.
Yeah.
Like when you can't even communicate and you're already learning a language and you feel led to minister to people that is not even speaking that language. And it's not even that they all speak one language. It's they all speak various languages. Yeah. So how do you overcome
they're not necessarily talking to each other. Like,
Well, they sit in their little groups, right? And so we just began interacting with the women, giving them the dignity of a handshake and eye contact and interacting with their kids, playing with their kids for a few minutes. Or, they're sitting there under their little umbrella or whatever next to the wall. And you go across the street to the little boutique and buy a soda or some yogurts for the kids and just show them that you see them and that you care. Because again, you are literally walking almost in some places walking over them on the sidewalk.
True,
like they're just
step over them.
Like it's not like you have to go out of your way to find these women. And they're right there on the main street at the round points, things like that. And so we just began interacting with them. I would take my nanny or my language teacher, start walking, asking them questions about their life. And what it turns out is that most of these women, the younger moms, they're widows.
Okay.
So their husbands have died or their husbands are sick and are not able. So not full, complete widows, but essentially living as if they're widows.
Yeah.
The other thing is in our culture is a man can have multiple wives.
Okay.
The man's going to have a favorite. It's just, you see that in the Bible too. They're like, there's, what is it called when you have multiple wives? Polygamy. There's polygamy in the Old Testament too. So God must allow. It's like, no, like that's not how God intended it. And where it did happen in the Old Testament, you see things fall apart. Like Rachel and Leah. Like just look at Rachel and Leah. Look at Sarah and Hagar. Like it never turns out well.
Yeah.
And one of the women always ends up not being the favorite and kind of getting rejected and neglected or, not treated well. And by the favorite wife or the other wives too. So these women, they end up having, for whatever reason, they're just not being taken care of and their kids are not being taken care of. And so this is their option is to leave their village. Most of the time they're leaving their older children. So children probably like 8 or older, they'll leave behind in the village with grandma or somebody. And then they bring their young kids, their babies, their toddlers. They come to our city and they survive. They're not sleeping on the streets. Most of them, some of them are, and those are ones that we try to help. But
where do they go if they're not sleeping on the streets?
Yeah, so like I said, there's a lot of people coming to this city.
Gotcha.
And people will just get together and you can rent a room.
Okay.
And they split that cost.
Gotcha.
And they'll even to the point where they'll take shifts of when like your family is allowed to sleep.
Okay, gotcha.
So they'll like kind of rotate.
Yeah.
In the worst parts,
6 hours, and then the next family gets it for 6 hours.
Oh,
That's
wow.
how they survive every day.
Do they have like their shifts and families sleeping?
Gotcha. And I don't know if that's what all the women do, but that is a reality that happens in this city with the women and just with people in general that aren't even on the street. So these women are widows. And then you also have this older population of widows where they're just old women that essentially probably can't do much in the home. And so their family sends them to the city to sit on the side of the road and beg and send money back.
To me, I think there's a book, I think Carter, I'm probably sure you've read it. It's called Misreading Scripture with Western Eyes. Yeah. And when we read in Scripture commands to take care of widows and orphans, we don't get the full impact of that, because like when I think of widows in our community, usually they're surrounded by a massive family that's helping take care of them. It's grandma. She's the matriarch. She's got people coming by every day, sees her family all the time. But we forget there's still countries out there where if you're a widow, well, all right, sorry, good luck, and if you're an orphan, okay, sorry, good luck. And it's not the same as America. The family support network is not the same in every country that you experience here in the deep South. Like it's not the same.
And I would say too, one thing about third world countries is that because people will often use this as a critique of what we're doing. They'll say, well, why can't you serve Jesus here? Why can't you come to the U.S. and serve Jesus? There's plenty of people who are lost and don't know Jesus, and there are poor people here. I'm like, you are absolutely right. And what I want to say is, and now what are you doing about it? That's what I want to say. But what I actually think is the international third world country life is that here in the States, you have nonprofits, you have churches, you have government assistance and aid. There's resources that you can get to help if you are falling into abstract poverty. But when you go to these other countries, there is no help from the government. If your family doesn't want to help you or you offend someone in your family, especially in these patriarchal cultures, you can get cast out with the snap of your fingers onto the streets, no matter who you are and what you're doing in that family. And there's, again, limited resources from whether it's nonprofits and churches. And again, where we are in a majority Muslim country, because of the 5 pillars of Islam and giving alms to the poor is one of those things you have to do in order to get to paradise. The poor almost need to be there. They have to exist for me to get my good works in. So they view as this is Allah, this is God's will for your life is to be poor and to stay poor so that the rest of us can do the good works to get to heaven. And so in Christianity, we look at this person as made in the image of God, that they have dignity, they have honor, that they deserve respect, and that we think God doesn't want this for you. There is something better for you in your life, not just physically to get off the street and break that generational cycle of physical poverty, but there is a God who loves you, who sees you, who wants to redeem you and give you so much more in your life than what you're currently experiencing. And so that's one of the things that we've realized is that this ministry that we've started is for these women and children. And it's translated, the word that we use is we call our ministry Door of Hope. And so we want to, because these women have no hope. And one of the funny things was, when Danielle started coming up to me, she's like, hey, by the way, I just went and talked to all these women and I basically invited them into our house. So that's going to be happening. And I'm sitting there going, wait, what? Like who, where, why, when? And definitely was a leap of faith because again, even in a community where there are a few other missionaries and missions organizations, they're kind of hiding. These women are hiding in plain sight because nobody can figure out how to talk to them or engage with them because there are other unreached people groups in this country that we're in that other missionaries are focusing on and with great intention. And that's amazing. But we just kind of we don't see anybody really talking to these women. And so that's kind of what we started to do. And
I think it's interesting to me that like, no matter where you live at, there's always invisible people.
Yeah.
You know, like if you live in Columbia County, right? Sure. I know everybody. It's small town. No, you don't. Yeah. There are people here that you don't see at all every day because they're not from here. They don't look like you. They don't live like you. But that's a principle that's true everywhere. And it's, something we don't think about. But on the mission field, surrounded by missionaries, they're still invisible people, and I think that's why it's so important that to answer that question that people ask you, why don't you do that here? Well, because we each have to be obedient to where God's calling us to go, because what he's calling us to do, he's calling us to do.
Absolutely.
And often looks foolish to the world.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It doesn't make any sense that, we would move to West Africa with 2 young kids. Yeah. That's incredibly unsafe. I think that's really what people think.
Yeah.
Is we're crazy. And what about your children?
Yeah.
And you just have to trust, like, my kids are safest when we're in alignment with the Lord. Mm-hmm. Like his plans are going to be way better and bigger for my kids than anything I could come up with.
Yeah.
And I have to trust him with that.
Yeah. I think it was William Carey who said that I'm invincible until the Lord's done with me. Yes,
so
like
true.
When you're in alignment with him, with him, right? Like we can step out of alignment and then we can, open the door and we can, start pestering us, coming after us, things like that. But I think when we're in alignment and we're on the assignment that God's given us, there's going to be divine protection.
Yeah.
And until, you look at Paul, it's not that bad things didn't happen to Paul, but the Lord never let it go too far. Like
Yeah.
it never, and Paul was like, he talks about in Philippians, if I'm still alive, it's because there's more work to be done.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
and that's why I'm here. And that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And then when that work is done, then like, I'll go to the Lord, praise God,
Mhm.
because that's where I really want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my loose translation is I'm here for a good time. It doesn't have to be a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I'm at. We're just going to,
Yeah.
we're going to
Yeah.
rock with it. So working with these different women from different countries, different tribes, but the same situation. What is the biggest obstacle to the gospel as you're having these conversations with them?
Yeah. So I would say, and I want to kind of go back to something that we were talking about earlier too. So don't let me forget that. I'll just touch on this real quick and then I'll kind of answer your question because it's kind of tied in. But we were talking about just ministering to the women and missions and things like that. And I think a lot of people in ministry, there's a big focus on going to, for example, in West Africa, the focus has been the men.
Mhm.
Because if the men convert, then the rest of the family is more likely to convert. And also men are more educated. Men can be in more leadership roles and things like that. And I understand that and I agree with a lot of that. But when I'm seeing, again, like kind of this shift, I feel like God is putting the least of these on a lot of missionaries' hearts, where like they're kind of shifting. There are people that are still focusing on these unreached people groups. How can we pour into, the people that could potentially lead or more qualified, I guess you could say, in a worldly way. But women and especially children, the street kids specifically. But I just see the Lord, like he's putting the least of these on these people's hearts. And so people will look at these women and they're like, what do you have to offer? If I bring you to Christ, what do you have to offer in return? Like, how are you going to be used? Like you can't read, you can't write, you have so much trauma. How are you going to be able to lead others to Christ one day? Disciples making disciples, And so and I think for a good reason, people are very strategic about who they go after, right? But I think looking at these women, because you're kind of like, oh man, they convert to Christ and that's kind of like the end, right? Like, what are they going to do? And I'm realizing more and more with this shift of what's going on, these women are all coming. So they're speaking all these different languages, tribal languages, unreached people groups coming from villages. And these women go back and forth between this city and their villages. Like we have women literally from near Timbuktu. That's a real place.
Yeah.
In West Africa.
Yeah, it's an actual real
Oh,
place.
really?
Yeah, it's a city.
It's a real
Timbuktu.
city called Timbuktu.
Did you know that?
I did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
My mind was blown. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
what
we
know,
have
yeah.
women from Timbuktu literally coming to our program. And the way they go back and forth, like all these countries, again, they're becoming more and more close to Americans, whether religiously, politically, Islamic extremism, they go back and forth. And so it's almost like discipling them, like they have their kids there, discipling them. Hey, what you're learning, teach it to your kids. We're teaching them songs in their own language. We're putting the Bible on their phones because they all have phones now. They can all get data. We're giving them resources, Bibles, even in French. And we know that they can't read them when they go back. Like there's someone in their village that speaks French.
Yeah.
And so we're able to almost, and that's where I see God creating this movement. He's bringing all these missionaries. He's bringing in all these unreached people groups to this one city. And these missionaries who've been kicked out, they're coming to us and saying, I've lived in this country for 20 years and like, I don't know what to do, but like you're reaching the people like in this language that I spent so much time learning, but I can't use anymore. So they're coming and wanting to volunteer and help teach and disciple these women. And I know that when these women, and we've already had some come to Christ, but discipling them in a way that, hey, when you go back to your village, share what you've learned. The peace and the joy that you feel in this courtyard, you can take back with you and share that with your village.
Yeah.
Or your kids. Like, don't just keep it to yourself, but give it to your kids too. Because there's so much too, like their biggest fear is sickness and death.
Yeah.
These people. And that's one of our ministry. One way that we started helping with these women that opened the door was just helping with their medical needs, getting to the doctor, getting their kids to the doctor, showing them that we care about them because we're willing to care for their health.
Yeah.
And buying medicine for them when they have, because they would go to the doctor, which is cheap, but then they would have these prescriptions and they couldn't have the money to fill the prescriptions. And But so one of the biggest things, especially there is a lot of Islam, but there's a lot of animism as well. And I would say animism is actually at the core, the stronger thing, this fear.
I would also say that animism is pretty high here in, the Southern United States.
It's growing. It's growing for sure.
Yeah.
I think New Age is the fastest growing religion in the United States right now. Mm-hmm. And if you look at Netflix and all these movies coming out, it's just, if you're a parent, just be aware, like they are starting to normalize it, indoctrinate it.
Yeah, we went and saw Toy Story 5 in the theaters the other day, which was like, Toy Story 5. And I went with my son and watched it. And of course, you're watching the commercials, the hour long of commercials before the movie. And one of the Disney movies that was there was called Hex, like being a witch. And I'm just like, wait, this is a Disney
you don't
movie?
fit in. You don't fit in. And this girl in middle school doesn't fit in. She can't figure out why. And then it turns out she's a witch. And they're like, if you don't fit in, maybe you're a witch.
And we're just like,
which all that stuff's real, guys. Just saying, all of it's real. Don't think like, oh, it's just, it's, and we see it every day in Africa. And
again, because here in the US, we like to clean up the darkness. And so we don't see it as much, or we choose to kind of look the other way. And so it's easier to kind of hide the spiritual darkness. In America, we've gotten so secular, or even that secular idea has kind of moved into the church, that the spiritual stuff that we hear about in the Bible doesn't really happen. The demonic, that was more like an old idea, blah, blah, blah. And that gets it can creep into the church a little bit, to where our head knowledge of Christ is so intellectual that we lose it. Now, there is a battle going on in the heavenly realms. And so when we go to Africa, it literally is in your face. And the only way to not see it is to close your eyes.
I think what I was going towards with like these women, they're so terrified of these spirits attacking their children. And so even the ones that have come to Christ, they'll show up and their kid has a new charm on them, essentially. I'm not going to use the actual word, but a new charm in a way. And it's like, hey, we trust Jesus to protect our kids.
Yeah.
And that is so countercultural, and they get so persecuted for that and so much fear. Like, oh, you're going to make the spirits angry, or like your kid's going to be open to this. And it's like discipling them. And hey, we don't depend on these things. We don't go, Satan can't cast out Satan, right? There's no light magic. Yeah. There's no good magic. It's all of the kingdom. If it's not Holy Spirit, if it's not Jesus, it's all of the kingdom of darkness. And it's just, he wants you to agree with that stuff. Like he wants agreement, right?
I would say it's actually not Islam necessarily that keeps them from Jesus. It's the animism, because they're fine with where we live in what's called folk Islam. So it's not Orthodox Islam like you would consider in North Africa, the Middle East, where that's a very strict form of Orthodox Islam. Where we live is, again, a kind of a combination between Islam and animism, African ancestor worship and idols and witch doctors and voodoo, going back to that word, kind of a combination of those things. And so what we've seen is that they're very open to having conversations about religion and Jesus. And it's not like, oh, you don't worship the prophet, or you aren't a fan of the prophet Muhammad or anything like that. It's very much like, oh yeah, we're cool with Jesus, but we're also gonna Jesus, but we're also gonna do, and that's
well, they
also
hold
here
the thing
as well.
Is the universalism. We serve the same God, because the Christians that they know there is Catholics, and there's a lot of, I'm not saying Catholicism is the same as Islam, but there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of similarities, at least over there, where it's more workspace. I mean, they both have like their rosary beads. They celebrate their holidays pretty much the same weeks. Like it's.
And so, it's very interesting. Just like there's folk Islam, there's also folk Catholicism, and there can be forms of folk Protestantism as well. And
we call that Southern Fried Christianity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. Jesus plus or something plus Jesus.
Yeah.
So, we really ought to have a conversation one day about my take on animism in the Southern United States.
We'd love to have a conversation about that.
I'm here for it.
It's here. It's just Jesus tainted.
We'll come back next week.
And even if we don't see it, and it's the phrases and the terminology that we use, and it's just very, very interesting. So.
It's creeping more and more into the church too, the New Age stuff, and
we don't have to go down.
We don't have to go down that road. I'll focus back on kind of your question though. So what is the biggest obstacle? I would say the two things I mentioned is language, but it's so cool because I'm like sitting on the other side, like hindsight 2020, when the Lord opened this door and called us to start working with these women and children. I was like, this makes no sense. How is this even going to work? We can't speak this language. There's so many different languages, but now I see what God's already doing. Like there is this movement of locals and missionaries, people who are being displaced, these missionaries that are being displaced and wanting to continue to work with these people groups, but not having the opportunity. And so when we just take that first step of obedience and that step of faith, these people just started coming, even local Christians because the city, these people, locals are coming to the city as well for university, for work, for jobs. So they're coming from their home countries as well. And they're Christians and they want to serve as well. And so we have that. And then the other thing I would say, that big obstacle, but again, I think the Holy Spirit has just really been intervening in this way and doing a lot of healing, is these women have never been in an environment of education, so school or anything. And also I think just psychologically and physiologically, just the trauma of their life, like their brains, like it's not even like they're choosing just to live for today, but it's like they don't even have the capacity to be able to think ahead.
Yeah.
A lot of learned behaviors.
Yeah.
They're kind of just going, like they're just surviving. And so we would find where we would even just share these simple stories from the Bible and then be like, okay, what did you guys learn? And they wouldn't be able to give us anything. And they'd be like, okay, who is the main character of the story? And they like don't know how to answer, whether it's they just can't process things in that way yet, or there's shame in a community. So if you say the wrong answer, like shame and honor, like there's fear and power and the shame and honor culture. So it's like, which one are we dealing with right now? But it's been so cool to see, being almost a year into the program and working with these women, especially the women who've been coming from the beginning, how different it is. When we first started, I had a missionary and she's a teacher, like she's a gifted teacher, spoke the language. And she was kind of like, hey, I got this. Like, you don't need to write the lessons anymore. I got this. I'll teach them because in her organization, they have these very clear ways of how you teach people. And that first session, she came back and she was like, I don't even know what just happened. Like they didn't get anything. It was very humbling.
Nothing just happened right there.
It was
I'm sure
very
you preached
humbling.
a few sermons like that before you were just like, I don't think anybody understood the word I just said.
It was very humbling. Because you're going as a missionary and you're like, I'm going to communicate the gospel to them and they may not get it, but like we'll work it. And it's like they couldn't even tell me the character's first name. Like,
and this isn't kindergartners we're talking about. These are full-grown adult women who you'll share 5 minutes
up to like 70 years old.
Jesus walking on water, and you're like, who was the main character of the story of Jesus walking on water? And they're like, and they just like look at you, and you're like, oh my, okay. So it's not just sharing the gospel, and we like the simple gospel that we talk about even here at the Orchard. There's so much work that goes in that. Again, sometimes Danielle and I look at each other and we're like, this is not what we're qualified by. We don't have an education degree or anything in regards to like working with like traumatized people groups or people who have been through these kind of things. Like this is outside of even our skill set. So like Holy Spirit, please lead us to know
a place of desperation. God, we literally cannot do this unless you intervene and you come in. And we have seen him do that. And it's been so amazing. And as hard of a place it is to be, where every day you're just like, I have no idea what to doing. Like,
So I kind of want to lean into that. So you guys have just a lot of just heaviness. So how do you guys, I guess, get poured into so that you can pour out?
Here's what I'll say about that question is you spend a lot of your time over there just trying to survive in a third world country. And even though we live in a city which is a little bit better than maybe going 13 hours out into the village somewhere way, way, way out in the middle of the desert, there's things that you go over there and you have these ideas and visions of, we're going to go over there and we're just going to share the gospel with people and it's just going to be so amazing. And we have this missionary heart and this evangelistic spirit and it's just going to be amazing. Sharing Jesus is the easy part. It's all the other stuff that you experience in a third world country that just keeps you busy. Like, for example, I'm sitting here right now getting text messages from a person staying in our home currently about our plumbing and water system that's basically exploded in our house. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not there, but our house is falling apart. And you live over there and you realize anytime anyone's listening and you go to the DMV or the county courthouse or any office and you get frustrated, trust me, you have it great. You have it amazing. Going to West Africa and dealing with just any government office or any company or any professional work environment, it is just so easy to get frustrated and down on yourself. And then again, you're far away from home. I grew up in Lake City on the same property as my aunt, uncle, my cousins, my grandparents. We all grew up together, had Monday night dinners together with my grandma in her house. And I lived that life. And so when we go over there and we exist as just the fam, the Jackson 4, we have a turtle, so we can be the Jackson 5, I guess. So we can be the Jackson 5. It becomes very apparent very quickly that it's us and the Lord. And I'm thankful that God has brought us friends, and he has brought us people to kind of help carry the weight of just being a friend and like wanting to, hey man, do you want to just go get lunch? Or do you want to like hang out at our house this weekend? Just normal things, not like every single thing we have to do together has to be some sort of ministry focus, but can we just be normal people in West Africa? And sometimes that helps me whenever I feel like, okay, this is getting very heavy, the spiritual darkness, the overwhelming workload of a third world country, of just living here, the foreign language, the being all the way across the ocean, or even things that are happening with my family and friends back stateside that I wish I could be there for. Something happy and jovial, like a birthday or an anniversary or someone graduating or someone like hitting their first home run. Oh man, I wish I don't get to be there for that. Or something tragic and dark and hard and marital conflict or difficult, and I can't be there and we can't be there. And the normal things in life sometimes help me personally, feeling like I can just go to the beach with a buddy and go fishing or go swimming or driving my little 125cc motorcycle around for like 25 minutes around the circle and like feeling the wind in my hair. I just a second of normality.
Or just to breathe.
Yeah, just to breathe.
I'm sure it's all the time. I mean, when you are in ministry is everywhere. It's all the time. But it's like you do have to carve out that little time to be Carter, to be Danielle, just to kind of breathe for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll answer that question a little bit differently as well. Yeah.
We're not the same.
I think kind of segueing, I think rest and solitude is super important, whether you're an extrovert or introvert. Like you just need time to process.
Yeah.
And you also see Jesus did that. Right?
Yeah.
Like he would constantly go away and spend time just with the Father because there's so much in our culture that we are just blind to, but Jesus saw it all.
Yeah.
He saw all the darkness and all the brokenness. And I just can't imagine how crushing that was for him. And you see kind of like these little outbursts from Jesus. And I'm not saying Jesus did it. Like it just happens because it is heavy and it's so burdensome. I think something that I've had to learn too, as I've processed things and really, it kind of goes along with the theology of suffering in a way, but just recognizing when you have the theology of like, God is in control of everything. It's like, okay, then why are these women and kids, why is this whole region of Africa just like just rough, you know, like everyone is suffering. Like when I was in the hospital, the nurses it was almost, they were so numb. Like there was no empathy or sympathy. And another missionary, my mentor, she was just like, but you have to understand, Danielle, everyone suffers in their life.
Yeah.
Like
that's
it's
all
just
they know
day to day.
Yeah.
And so they're just so like just hearts of rock.
Yeah.
Stone. Like they have to just cut it out. Like they can't feel it all. But that's not what we're called to as Christians. So it's like, okay, how do we balance this? And for me, it kind of goes back to that theology of like, okay, I do believe God is in control, but the Bible also says that the systems of this world, the prince and the ruler of the air and the ruler of this world is Satan.
Yeah.
Right? Like when Jesus was tempted and Satan said, hey, if you bow down and worship me, I will give you all these kingdoms. Jesus didn't say, well, those aren't yours to give. Those are God's. He said that's not what Jesus said. He acknowledged that was in Satan's right to give those things. And so when we're over there, it's not like, I don't have to wrestle with God. Like, God, why are you allowing these kids? It's like, no, like there is a stronghold. There is a power. There is an enemy that has blinded these people, that is keeping them in bondage, like so much bondage of fear and shame, both physically, spiritually, emotionally, like all these different ways. And he's doing everything he can to keep these people in bondage. But God sends us as his ambassadors into this. And so it's like, I'm working with God because I want the same thing as God. God doesn't want these people. This isn't his will. His will is for us to come and set the captives free by the Spirit of God.
Yeah.
To heal people and to share the gospel, share the good news.
Yeah.
You don't have to live in this darkness anymore. That this is where the enemy wants you, but this is not where God wants you.
Yeah.
Right? Like if God willed everyone to just suffer like that, then what would be the point of of what we're doing, right? And so I think for me, I don't have to wrestle with that, like, God, why would you kill babies?
Yeah.
Because I know like that's not God.
Yeah.
That's not his heart. He's for life. And yes, he allows suffering to happen. Like I just went through an immense amount of suffering, but I also know like it was the enemy attacking me.
Yeah.
But God allowed that.
Yeah.
But it was for my good.
Yeah.
And I clearly saw that and knew that the whole time.
Yeah.
And there was clear boundaries of protection around that.
Yeah.
But it's like these women, it's like, yeah, these women are on the street and they're growing up on the street, but it's like, why would God do that? It was like, because they're there and suffering the way they're suffering, that they're walking in our door now.
Yeah.
And they have an opportunity to hear the gospel that so many other people in this unreached country don't.
Yeah.
Because they are suffering the way they are suffering.
Yeah.
So it is essentially for their good that they have the option now to hear the gospel.
Yeah.
Whereas the other people living, our other neighbors on our street, we're not talking to them.
Yeah.
We will when we can, but like that's not what God has a heart for these women. And he's like, Danielle and Carter, go talk to these people.
Yeah.
Like, this is my assignment that I've given you. And so I think for me, when I sit and I process like everything, my heart breaks, but I can find comfort and rest that this is not what God wants for them.
That's so good.
And he wants to use us to help and to bring his light and his power into that.
Yeah.
And that's, I think for anyone, and just as believers, this isn't even just as a missionary, as a ministry, we're vessels.
Yeah.
We're just jars of clay carrying the power of God within us.
Yeah.
And so every time I interact with these women or they come into our courtyard, my main priority is to create a space where the Holy Spirit is welcome to move. Because when Danielle shows up, nothing really happens.
Yeah.
I can't do anything in my own power. As we've talked about, like we're not qualified, but when Jesus shows up, anything is possible.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's just the way, like you can just trust God and his goodness and his kindness and his mercy to these people. And when you know that that is his heart towards them, you're willing to serve and you're willing to go to these dark places and you know that it's a battle. Yeah. And you love the people, but you hate the sin. Mm-hmm. Right? Like we love Muslims. We love these women that are practicing animism, but we hate the bondage that they're in. Right. And that's what we're fighting against. We're not fighting against humans. We're fighting against principalities and powers of the air and, and against Satan. Yeah. And so I don't know how that makes things better or easier to carry, but maybe it's because you feel hopeless in the humility of admitting that you can't do anything, but you also have so much hope because God is on your side and fighting for them.
We know the answer to the end of we've already read the end of the book. Yeah. Right. So there is a victory, there is a win, but sometimes as humans and normal, everyday average people, there is a weight that comes along with it. And so we encourage people. Missionaries are not superhero Christians. Yeah. We're not the elite of the elite, the special Delta Force Navy. We're average, just like pastors, just like elders of churches. We're just normal, average. I love my sweet tea, Jacksonville Jaguars, FSU Seminoles. I'm a normal, average guy. Yeah. But we, in those moments of darkness, when we do struggle, when we do question, and we do wrestle with what we're going through, your text messages, your emails, your FaceTime calls, your letters that we get in the mail, those are things that the visits, when people come to visit us in West Africa, those are things that help us so much. Yeah. They help us stay there. They help us continue to do the ministry. So even if you're here listening and you're thinking, I don't even know what I could do to help them, just find a small way to be present in our lives. Even if we don't know you, we've never met you, those little things do go a long way.
I was actually just about to ask, if someone did want to start, getting updates from you guys, figuring out how they can support you, pray for you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, the best way with them would just be to send an email to our email, which is info@emberglobalvision.org. Okay. And so that's the best way. And we can put them on our email newsletter list. And we would love to continue to share and talk with people who would love to know more about what we're doing, what we're passionate about. And like I said, I have a vision of one day at the Orchard coming to visit us and coming to do a mission trip. So getting a few people together, coming on an initial visit, and then making that a regular part of this church and the culture of the Great Commission around the world. So yeah, that's something that I have in my mind one day. So low-key plug, I'm starting to hear on the podcast today. It will happen. So if you're like, that's me, I want to go, sign up. tell anybody and everybody. We'd love to tell Chip, like, grab his arms, strong arms, like, hey, this is happening.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, we do have a website, so it's emberglobalvision.org. So the same thing as that email that Carter just said. But if you just want information, see some pictures, videos, things like that about our ministry in West Africa, you can go on that website.
Okay.
As well. And also our contact information's on that website as well.
Awesome. I'll make sure I write that at the end. But Carter, Danielle, thank y'all so much for being here today, just to update us and to know how, we can connect. Man, God is doing some really amazing things in and through you guys. And I cannot wait until the next update to hear what he's doing even more. But, well, thanks for listening today to today's episode. If you have any questions for Carter, Danielle, or if you want to connect with them, you can reach out to the church at info@theorchardcc.org. But I will also link their contact info. But in the meantime, have a great week and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk About That. We hope it encouraged and challenged you as we continue to grow on this journey of faith and embrace community together. If you have more questions, thoughts, or feedback, we want to hear from you. Be sure to reach out to us through our social media or visit our website to stay connected. If you found today's discussion meaningful, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Until next time, we hope that this episode inspired you and will keep Sunday's message at the front of your mind. See you next week.